that has the potential of affecting the credibility of all sport, why would I watch an event that's fixed?
The disappearance of Teresa Halbach remains a mystery.
Mr. Avery's blood is found inside of Teresa Halbach's vehicle.
If this is true, it is an unimaginable level of criminality.
You better believe it.
I'm only human.
Welcome back. Today, I'm showing you 9 amazing documentaries you can watch on Netflix, covering everything from true crime and real-world scandals to sports, power, and the forces that shape modern society. There's definitely something on this list you're going to enjoy, and if you end up finding a good pick here, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Don't fuck with cats.
I was on Facebook one day,
and I found this video. I pressed play.
One of the most disturbing true crime documentaries I've seen starts online, and it follows a group of ordinary internet users who come across a series of videos depicting animal cruelty and begin investigating the person behind them, keeping records of details, cataloging clues, and tracking potential leads. What begins as an online investigation escalates as the person behind the videos records increasingly violent acts, extending beyond the screen to real-world crimes involving the mailing of human body parts to Canadian government offices. It stands out as a remarkably constructed true crime documentary built entirely around an online trail, Making a Murderer.
Stephen Avery spent 18 years in prison for something he didn't do.
18 years.
One of the most bizarre and infuriating police cases ever documented is the case of Stephen Avery. Avery spends 18 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit before DNA evidence finally clears him and sets him free. After his release, he files a $36 million lawsuit against the county responsible for his wrongful conviction. But before that lawsuit ever goes anywhere, Avery is accused of another murder, pushing the story in a completely different direction and putting him back at the center of an even bigger case. The documentary follows the case as it unfolds, the investigation, the trial, and how evidence is handled. Making a Murderer becomes less about one crime and more about the justice system itself, how power, pressure, and procedure can decide an outcome long before a verdict, and whether the truth ever really had a fair chance. The Last Dance.
Michael Jordan and the Bulls changed the culture.
This is the best sports documentary on Netflix, following what, in my opinion, is one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Michael Jordan, and the Chicago Bulls as they chase their 6th championship during the 1997-98 season. We get a behind-the-scenes look at a time when Jordan was one of the biggest celebrities on the planet, while the team already knew Phil Jackson was out and the run was coming to an end. While we see some of the best basketball ever played and the Bulls at the height of their dominance, the documentary spends just as much time on everything surrounding the action. It includes unreleased footage, brutally honest interviews, and teammates who still don't agree on what really happened. The Last Dance shows us an unfiltered Michael Jordan, how he pushed everyone around him, clashed with management, and used every doubt as fuel, taking everything personal. Evil genius.
A potential hostage sent into the bank with an explosive around their neck. Something like this had never happened before in the history of the FBI.
The true story of America's most diabolical heist begins with a man walking into a bank wearing a bomb locked around his neck. He claims he's been taken hostage and forced to rob the bank as part of an elaborate scavenger hunt, insisting the device will explode if he doesn't follow instructions. When the bomb detonates in public, investigators are left with a crime that makes no immediate sense. Part robbery, part hostage situation, and part spectacle. As the case unfolds, the documentary reveals a small group of conspirators operating behind the scenes, connected through manipulation, obsession, and increasingly elaborate planning. What initially appears to be a bizarre one-off crime slowly expands into a deeper examination of control and premeditation, exposing how the heist was constructed long before the day it unfolded. Evil Genius documents one of the most bizarre and unsettling public crimes in American history. Icarus.
Were you the mastermind that cheated the Olympics?
Yes.
One of the most eye-opening sports documentaries ever made begins as a simple experiment. At the center is a Russian scientist overseeing a state-run doping program whose involvement pulls the documentary away from personal experimentation and into the inner workings of international sports fraud, exposing systematic cheating, high-level cover-ups, and the machinery behind Olympic doping. What follows is a rapid shift from a small cycling experiment into a global scandal, revealing how performance, politics, and power intersect behind the scenes of elite sport. Icarus stands as a rare documentary that begins with curiosity and ends by uncovering one of the most consequential doping operations in modern sports history, Tiger King.
It's not every day that a zookeeper
went to prison for murder for hire.
This isn't just another crazy guy who keeps wild animals as pets. He is the self-proclaimed king of big cats, the flamboyant Joe Exotic, the private zoo owner obsessed with fame and control, using an online persona to turn his life and everyone around him into spectacle. What starts as homemade music videos and attention-seeking stunts takes a sharp turn as the story suddenly shifts into allegations of animal abuse, illegal breeding, financial schemes, arson, recorded threats, and disappearing animals. Tiger King stands out as one of the most extreme escalation arcs ever captured in a true crime documentary. FYRE, the greatest party that never happened.
The most insane festival the world has ever seen.
Island getaway turned disaster.
The biggest party on the planet, staged on an island once owned by Pablo Escobar, marketed through influencers, models, and social media spectacle, the festival is presented as a once-in-a-lifetime luxury experience on a private island in the Bahamas. At the center is a young entrepreneur obsessed with image and scale, promising yachts, villas, and celebrity access, while relying almost entirely on promotion rather than preparation. As the launch date approaches, the operation begins to break down behind the scenes. Missed deadlines, unpaid vendors, and impossible logistics hidden beneath carefully curated online content. When the festival finally opens, the illusion collapses in full view, drawing in the FBI and exposing one of the biggest scams in modern history. 13th.
We now have more African Americans under criminal supervision than all the slaves back in the 1850s.
One of the most powerful and uncomfortable documentaries on Netflix looks at the American justice system through a single line in the Constitution. It traces how the 13th Amendment ended slavery, except as punishment for a crime, and how that exception is used over time to justify mass incarceration. It shows how laws, language, and fear are used to criminalize entire communities, turning incarceration into a political and economic tool rather than just a response to crime. Through archival footage, expert interviews, and historical context, it connects slavery, segregation, and modern policing into one continuous system rather than separate times in history. The social dilemma.
A whole generation is more anxious, more depressed.
I always felt like fundamentally it was a force for good. I don't know if I feel that way anymore.
While this isn't the most shocking documentary on this list, it might be the most important, because this one isn't about a crime that happened somewhere else. It's about something that's happening to you and me right now. The Social Dilemma pulls back the curtain on the people who built platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Former engineers, designers, and executives explaining how these systems were designed to shape behavior, hold attention, and keep users scrolling. Not because they're evil, but because attention is the product. The documentary shows how algorithms don't just recommend content, they decide what version of reality you see, how search results change depending on location, how feeds quietly reinforce beliefs, and how outrage spreads faster than truth. It connects those systems to rising anxiety, depression, isolation, political polarization, and a generation growing up inside feedback loops they never chose to enter. Let's take our own example. While you're watching this video, something else is watching you back, measuring how long you stay, what you skip, what you react to, and what it should show you next. So ask yourself, why are you here right now? Was it the thumbnail, the title, or was it the algorithm quietly deciding what your next move should be? Sometimes that question doesn't have a clean answer. I'll see every single one of you in the comment section. Thank you for watching.